If you're planning on moving to the Big Island, there's one natural phenomenon that most people don't know about until they start living here. And that phenomenon is named fog. And since fog can and does affect daily life here on the island, I thought I would make a video explaining what fog is, what different effects you can expect it to have on you and the environment, and a little bit of history on fog from the last couple of decades. Fog stands for volcanic fog or volcanic smog. Basically, it's air pollution that is caused by an erupting volcano. When a volcano is erupting, the smoke and the gases coming out of it contain sulfur dioxide, which, when mixed with moisture, sunlight, and oxygen, create really fine particles in the air of this volcanic haze, which results in a fog that covers the atmosphere. And what determines the different levels on different parts of the island? Because even if the volcano is erupting on the east side of the island, the fog can still travel to the west side. It really depends on how and where the wind is blowing on that particular day or on that month. That being said, if we break it down further, there's 4 things that affect the fog levels. Number 1 is volcanic activity. How much lava and smoke is actually billowing out of that volcano and for how long? And number 2, as I mentioned previously, is wind strength and wind direction. Oftentimes the trade winds on the Big Island are blowing downwards, so from northeast they kind of go down, but if the wind direction shifts, then a lot of that fog ends up going to the west side of the island. Number 3 is distance and topography. So of course, the farther away you are from the eruption and the more obstacles that are in the way, such as hills and mountains, the less likely you're going to get a lot of fog. But of course, if the wind is really strong and is blowing in that direction, regardless of the obstacles, through the atmosphere, that fog probably will still make its way over there, but it will be a little bit less than other areas that don't have as much obstructions. Number 4 is the weather. This one is pretty interesting because fog formation depends on chemical reactions. So if there's not enough sunlight or moisture in the air, even if the volcano is erupting and there's a lot of smoke, there's not going to be that much fog. There needs to be a lot of sunlight and there needs to be humidity in the air. So now that we know what fog is and what determines the different levels of fog, the next logical question is, how does it affect health and how does it affect the environment? Let's start with the effects on the environment first. The first thing you're going to notice is a haze or a fog in the air. So usually here in Kona on the west side, you can see a pretty clear distinction between the ocean and the sky horizon. There's a clear line where the ocean ends and the sky begins. Whenever there's fog, there is no distinction. It's almost like everything is foggy and the sky just kind of merges with the ocean. Visibility out into the distance also decreases. And one cool thing though, is that you can look in the sun when it's up in the sky without really squinting. Because of all the fog particles in the air, a lot of the sunlight ends up getting blocked and the sun looks a little bit more orange than usual. So you can look at it without destroying your eyes. And for the health side effects, I do have some first-hand experience. We moved here in 2020, and since then, we've had about 3 or 4 different times where there was fog here in Kona when Kilauea erupted. 2 of the times were pretty mild. It only lasted about a week or a week and a half. And then the other 2 times were a little bit more severe. It was over a month, with the longest being about a month and a half or 2. I don't remember exactly, but it seemed like Kona was hazy for a very long time. Different people are affected differently by the fog. Some are not bothered at all. Others start to experience the symptoms. Personally, I experienced more of a runny nose and itchy eyes. Some people were having coughing symptoms where they would have a dry cough throughout the day, every single day. And of course, people who had pre-existing respiratory conditions, those conditions got a little bit amplified and sharpened. But there is some good news as well. Once the volcano stops erupting, the air tends to clear up pretty quickly. As for the history of fog on the island, I tried to look up data from 1980, and there's actually not too much concrete statistics. So if there's anybody watching this that was born and raised on the Big Island, it would be awesome to hear from your personal experience. How many times did you have to deal with fog, and how severe were its effects? But from what I found, around 1980 is when they experienced one of the biggest spikes in the sulfur dioxide levels. After that, it kind of tapered off. 1983, they had another spike. And then, depending on how much the volcano erupted, it would just kind of go up and down. But after that, there was no really big spikes until 2018. In 2018, Mount Kilauea had a lengthy eruption, and a lot of that fog got blown over to the west side of the island. So that was one of those times where Kona was hazy for quite a while. After that eruption ended, the air contamination levels dropped pretty sharply and just bounced up and down depending on how many times Mount Kilauea erupted and for how long. Now let's move on to practical terms. How does fog actually affect daily living of people living on the Big Island? First of all, I would like to point out that the occurrence of fog is actually not too frequent, and whenever it happens, it usually does not last too long. It's only every other year or every third year where the fog comes in and it lingers for a while. But again, this really depends on where on the island you live. Some parts of the island get a lot of fog, other parts barely ever get any fog. And whenever fog does move into a neighborhood for a while, people tend to stay indoors more often and they close up their windows just so less of that fog gets into the house. Those who are fortunate enough to have central air conditioning in their home with a filtration system, they experience less of the symptoms, and those people that usually leave all their windows open for the air to blow through and they have no kind of air conditioning, of course, they tend to experience more of the symptoms. It can get pretty hot in some areas, so you can't just close up all the windows in the house without any air conditioning. It's going to become a sauna real quick. And just a little tip for people with respiratory conditions, if you're looking to buy property on the Big Island, it would probably be best to avoid homes that are in valleys. Because as far as I understood, that fog, it tends to settle into valleys more. And if you're interested to look up all this information yourself and watch the data and the monitoring, a great website for this is the Hawaii Interagency Fog Information Dashboard. I know that's a really long name, and luckily they abbreviated it. So you just have to go to fog.ivhhn.org. On this website, you can find live and historical sulfur dioxide levels, along with a variety of articles of eruption hazards, what is fog, fog forecasts, air quality, fact sheets, health effects, information for schools, how it affects plants and agriculture, and etc. One last thing I want to mention about the environmental effects is acid rain. Fog can mix with the clouds and create acid rain. So for people that have catchment systems where they're collecting the rainwater, that acid rain could cause a little bit of a problem. So in summary, fog is just one more thing to consider when moving to the Big Island. But is it a deal breaker? Definitely not. Knowing what I know now, would I move to the Big Island again? Absolutely. We love the Big Island, and I'm sure you will too. Our team has put together a relocation guide to the Big Island that is completely free, so if you want some more information, check my video description for a link to that. I'm a realtor here on the Big Island on the Kona side, so if you're looking to buy or sell property on the Big Island, make sure you reach out to me and we'll work together to find you the best deal possible. All my contact information can be found in the video description. Thanks so much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time. And if you're still here and not saying something about fog in the comments, I got a joke for you. What is a realtor's favorite type of music? Well, it's house, of course. And why are realtors such great storytellers? Because every listing has a plot twist.